For now is Mr. Sankarshan Thakur, Mr. Shekhar Gupta, Mr. Swapan Dasgupta, and Ms. Madhu Trehan. The discussion is going to be about Ballot Box, Polls 2014 and their message. Mr. Sankarshan Thakur has been Associate Editor with The Telegraph and Indian Express and Executive Editor of Tehelka. He is the Telegraph's Delhi-based roving editor and has extensively reported on Kashmir, Bihar, and socio-political conflict in the subcontinent. He has written Subaltern Sahib, Bihar, and the Making of Lalu Yadav, and Single Man, The Life and Times of Nitish Kumar of Bihar. He won the Prem Bhatia Award for Excellence in Political Journalism in 2001. Mr. Shekhar Gupta's his work includes some of the most significant investigations in contemporary journalism in the region, from Indira Gandhi's Operation Blue Star to the disastrous India's intervention in Sri Lanka, from tracking Pakistan's politics and military to the first Afghan jihad and its effect in Kashmir. A recipient of the Padma Bhushan in 2009, he is the author of Assam, A Valley Divided, and a monograph, and India redefines its role. Mr. Swapan Dasgupta has edited a collection of essays called Niraj Chowdhury, The First 100 Years. A co-participant of the weekly show Politically Incorrect with Manishankar Iyer on NDTV, he has held senior editorial posts at The Statesman, The Daily Telegraph, The Times of India, The Indian Express, and India Today, where he was the managing editor till 2003. Ms. Madhu Trehan, who started the news magazine India Today in 1975, produced and anchored the TV news magazine program News Track and became known as a pioneer in investigative journalism. She has written the book Prism Me Alive, Tell Me a Truth, Tehelka as Metaphor, and is now editor-in-chief of newslaundry.com, which is a website that critiques the press and media. Now I hand over the session to the panelists. Enjoy the session.
The session is called Polls to, and all three panelists, Swapan Dasgupta, Shekhar Gupta, and Sankarshan, were on TV channels throughout the election campaign and were giving their opinions on the campaigns and when the results were coming out. And I think all of them will have to admit that they were all wrong. The only polls that were close to, the only polls that came close to what actually happened was Chanakya's. Everybody else.
We are not pollsters.
Yeah, but your opinions on numbers of what was happening. Tell me, Shekhar, how close were the journalists to what actually happened?
No, look, I think most journalists got the basic fact that it will be an NDA government right. Most journalists got the fact, I think most journalists said or believed that Congress will not cross 100.
That wasn't rocket science.
Yes, that was?
Not rocket science.
No,
that was common.
That's okay, but journalists can't do much better than that because every constituency has its own logic. I mean, if you ask me, my own bet was 63 for Congress and 248 for BJP. But many people, just look, as the campaign went on, I think, barring journalists who were really partisan one way or the other, nobody got it so wrong, if I may be fair. In fact, even the pro-BJP journalists did not predict 330 odd for NDA. So, and that, frankly, if you look back in retrospect, that tells you that increasingly now, Indian electorates are giving clearer verdicts. They are not confused. They don't go and look at 5 symbols or 6 symbols and decide which one to vote for. I think, and also they are moving beyond identity. So once you see all that, and you see the history of some of the earlier elections before that in states, you've seen clear results everywhere. So I think this is in conformity with that.
So this was in many ways a landmark election in the sense that it removed the, as you said, identity, the caste vote, the vote banks.
It didn't remove it, but it did not
diluted it.
Did not leave it as the main denominator.
Yeah, and for journalists such as Swapan, who are openly pro-BJP, am I right in that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you clapping for him or for me? You're clapping for him being pro-BJP. Well done. Yes. What do you think? Should journalists be partisan?
Well, Madhu, let me be quite categorical about it. I'm not merely pro-BJP in this election. I actually camped for nearly 3 weeks for the Modi campaign, having helped it in various other ways prior to that. I think I make no secret about it. I've always said so quite openly. And the reason for it is that's because I am a free agent. I don't hold any organizational posts in any media thing. I can operate both as a writer, and I make my preferences, my biases quite categorical, and I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
You're transparent about
I'm
your
quite
position, which a
open,
lot
I'm
of
qui-
journalists, although hold positions, are not transparent about it. Yeah?
What I would say is that at the same time, I'm not a member of the BJP, so I can afford to take positions which are not part of the party line. But having said all these by way of disclaimer and by way of clarification, I would say that if you were to call an election a landmark election in conventional political terms means an election which marks a break from the past, number one, and that pattern persists for a number of elections. Now, we don't know about the second facet of it, whether this presidential style campaign, which was consciously set out as a presidential style campaign, actually is going to be something which can persist over a longer period. Number two, I think what is very important to mark this election is that this election marked a serious defeat for the Congress and for caste-based parties, but it did not have a similar decimating effect on the regional parties. Those were completely regional in nature, and I was referring to the Anna DMK, the Biju Janata Dal, and the Trinamool Congress, three principal examples of that. So the pattern of election was mixed. Number four, I would say that this election also suggested that this was more a mandate for Narendra Modi than for the BJP, for a simple reason that the footfall of the BJP was limited to some 300 seats and didn't exist in very large parts of India. However, when the results came out and you looked at the BJP having got something like 280, what was it? 283. Now, 283 out of 300, if you look at it, marks a staggering strike rate and a spectacular strike rate of something. So I think we have to look at this election in various forms. If you're looking at the mandate of this election, look at it in terms of a mandate for Modi, and let us therefore proceed to assess and analyze what does that mandate mean in actual concrete terms. Was it merely a mandate for a style of leadership, which again has to be juxtaposed against Manmohan Singh's style of leadership? Or was it a mandate for specific sets of policies? So these are the...
We come back to that very point with all three of you. I'd just like Sankarshan to begin his analysis of the post-2014 election, and then we'll come back to the same subject.
Clearly, there were two things. There was a party which was, I'm not sure if it was dead, but it gave the impression of being, proactively fed the perception of being dead. And there was Narendra Modi, and not the BJP, I agree with Swapan. Narendra Modi here feeding energies out of the sort of residual, whatever remained. I think Narendra Modi fed a lot on how much the Congress government in particular, not so much, but the government had disintegrated. And this, as a reporter on the sort of election trail, the one thing that was almost tactile everywhere was that people wanted that government out. I mean, that was very clear. They wanted the Congress out. And I know this is very personal, since you spoke about how you assessed it. this is within my office, but I did win half a crate of scotch on betting Congress getting less than 50 seats. I mean, but people, I mean, there was a sense that the Congress is getting decimated, and I think Shekhar is right, and we had that broadly, we are not number tellers, but that the NDA was coming to power and the BJP, I mean, the Congress was going out, was palpably clear. The second point that I think I'll take off from what Swapan just said, this presidential style of campaign, it has also produced a presidential prime minister. It is a very different style of functioning, not only from Manmohan Singh, but from a series of predecessors that probably Indira Gandhi may sort of merit parallels with this, but I don't think so. Because what Narendra Modi is beginning to do or display or exhibit is a radically different style of functioning in terms of it's a one personality driven government. A different style, but one doesn't have to agree with it. I remain very skeptical as a journalist of what it will do to a pluralist polity. I also disagree. I think that caste has been taken out of the electoral equation in India. In that election, yes, because it was so the axis was so much. The Congress has to go out. Manmohan Singh has to go out. It was like debris which needed to be swept out. So yes, in that election, caste seemed to us in many ways to be dissipating. But I think the by-elections that have followed the May election have demonstrated to us that caste does matter. Ground arithmetic on caste does matter. A Mayawati stepping away from an election can produce a very different result in Uttar Pradesh. Lalu and lo and behold, Nitish coming together, and I do say lo and behold, that arithmetic can sort of arrest the BJP's growth in the Bihar context. So I think, frankly, that we have to wait a little and be patient. It is to me, a very, very engrossing process that is happening. It is new, it is radically different, yes, I agree. But I haven't made it's too soon for me to make conclusions of what is happening. It's a very interesting process. Even what Modi is, how he is running his government and his party.
We'll come to that in the third part of it, but it's ironical that yesterday Narendra Modi speaking in New York, you're saying that we should be patient, and he did mention that this generation is impatient, and he is aware of that. And I'd like to take it to Shekhar. Shekhar, you have seen elections since 1956 when you were...
I was born in 57, so I didn't see anything before I was born.
You've been married now.
So, from the time of Indira Gandhi's elections, that I know you have been saying, how was this so different? It was really different in every sense. The media coverage, the way Narendra Modi controlled the media, how these interviews of Rahul Gandhi, the first one with Arnab, and the ones that followed with Arnab Goswami, etc., with Narendra Modi, they were extremely controlled and carefully orchestrated. So this we've never seen before. The kind of campaigning that was done, we've never seen before. The kind of money that was spent, we've never seen before. We've never seen this kind of technology that was used, particularly by Narendra Modi, the social media's game. So it was a new game. So can you compare the campaign itself before we get to the impact of what is happening today? But the campaign itself, we've never seen it, and you can compare it with all the ones that you've seen before, when Indira Gandhi used to go on an elephant to villages.
Well, Indira Gandhi's visit to Belchi on an elephant was not during an election campaign. It was
During
like
a
her
flood.
coming out party when
Yeah.
when she was after the emergency. But look, there have been several elections in India that produced a decisive result in our living memory as journalists. And each one had one strong motivation. If you look at 1977, that's in many cases, the motivation was to throw out the existing government, throw out the incumbent. 77, that was the motivation. 1989, when Rajiv got defeated, that was the motivation. Everybody just voted against Rajiv. He got 200 odd seats. But don't forget that before that, he had 415 in that house, right? And he was reduced to almost half because people just wanted him out.
Compare the.
No, I'm coming to that. But there are also elections in which people want somebody in. For example, 1984 was an election, people wanted Rajiv in, young fellow, sympathy. So people need a strong nationwide motivating factor to produce a decisive result. This time, that was available. And in fact, two reasons were available. One, that everybody wanted UPA to go. So even if Modi had not come in, UPA would have gone. Maybe you would have got a khichdi, but UPA would have definitely gone. So I was always, I as in the voter, was always going out to vote against UPA. The second thing, Modi made an alternative available. That is the first time in Indian politics. And I'll tell you why. Because you can say that Indira Gandhi did that, Rajiv Gandhi did that, because they said everybody knew they'll be prime ministers, unlike Sonia. But they owned their parties. There was no challenge to them in their parties. If Modi is today behaving like a presidential-style prime minister, frankly, he also ran a presidential-style campaign within his party for his nomination. He had to fight a withering battle within his own party.
He had to work for it.
He had to work. In fact, he started working on it a long time back. He built his own alliances. He played his own games. He ran his politics in his own party. We remember how hard Hillary and Obama fought for the Democratic nomination. He did something like that, even though there was no election. But BJP is a rare party, or has been until now a rare party in India. BJP and maybe CPM, which still has, or had, I would say, in case of BJP, some internal democracy. So there he showed skill, and I think the fact that he got his party's support and got nominated, I mean, Sankarshan is smiling. It's over, I'm saying. It's over. That's why I said had. I corrected has to had. And we have to see if the BJP has an immune system. Look, we've seen another party like this, which had internal democracy sort of die out and become a dynastic party, completely family-run dynastic party, that being Akali Dal. Akali Dal was the most democratic party in the country. Now it's father, son, daughter-in-law, brother-in-law, brother-in-law's brother-in-law, and I think it goes on like that.
One of the things, since you brought it up, one of the things that has become legendary already is how Narendra Modi is cutting off anyone who's trying to promote dynastic politics. All the people who've tried to promote their sons have been not discarded, but been put in cold storage.
Well, it's not quite true. I think in some cases they are, in some cases they are not, because many sons and daughters have got tickets. Many sons and daughters have become legislators. Many are being given tickets now in Maharashtra. So I think there is a bit of pick and choose there, because then you see which dynasty, and this is pure quotidian politics, which dynasty can be a threat, which dynasty is fine. So, you don't sit in judgment over that.
Why not? I think we should sit in judgment.
No, I mean, I'm not sitting in value judgment over that, because if somebody wants to build a dynasty, they have to fight internal battles within the party. It's only the Gandhis who inherited a party, right? All the others have not inherited a party.
Also, principally, Shekhar, would you sort of say that a politician's son or a daughter who wants to take up that career should be sort of taken out only because I'm not talking dynasty.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. They have the right, and I think in many ways they are more qualified. But they should be fair competition within the party. What is the problem with the Congress party? Has any non-Gandhi, I mean, have they even held a sham election in the party? Have they ever held a sham election where they put up some? Even in China, there is a political party that's not the Communist Party. In fact, their equivalent of the chairman of the upper house in China is from that party. It's just a notion, right? Congress has not even had a notion of internal democracy. When was the last time that, forget party president, that CWC members were elected?
So let's come back to today now. what we are looking at right now, talking about democracy within the party and freedom within the party and the kind of information that journalists now have to deal with. And as you know, there's a lot of restricted information. Swapan, maybe you'd like to take that question.
Yeah, I'd
which
like to
is,
take
once
the
again,
question, and I
Editors
think
Guild, Editors Guild has sent a...
Well, I mean, Editors Guild is entitled to act like the trade union of journalists. I mean, that's
No, first
one
clarify
thing.
what they've done. I don't think everybody might know.
Well, may I just say that that there has been a very troubled relationship between Narendra Modi and the media. By and large,
That's good. Shouldn't it be with power? Journalists should have a troubled relationship
well,
with
Madhu,
power.
I'm just saying that there has been a troubled relationship. Whether it's good or bad is for someone else to decide. Till about 3 weeks or so before, I would say that notorious Rahul Gandhi interview with Arnab Goswami was really a turning point in that election. Not so much because it made Rahul look less than adequate, but it also signaled that really the Congress has lost the plot. And after that, really there was a bandwagon effect of the media in favor of Modi. But prior to that, what had happened, particularly if you go back exactly a year ago to September 2013, etc., the media, with very few exceptions, were implacably hostile to Narendra Modi. And the entire Modi strategy was crafted on the basis that you have a hostile media, what do we do about it? So the idea was, therefore, how do you reach the voters going above the head of the media? And the way it was done is you held mass meetings, and because the Modi's public rallies attracted a massive amount of TRPs, the media was forced to broadcast it, at least the electronic media. I came across people in certain remote parts of Jharkhand, etc., which said, oh, we not only heard Modi when he came to our local meeting, we've heard him 5 times. That means each of those speeches were not meant for those audiences who were listening there. They were actually targeted at a bigger TV audience, and he knew he was getting it. Cable television has made that possible, and he could do it despite the media.
Sankarshan.
Now the point is the media feels very troubled by this. Because you've reached the people without an interlocutor. By your raison d'etre, the media as the broker of public opinion, that thing has been destroyed.
No, okay,
So therefore the Editors Guild, made up of people who are by and large...
Listen to these
These two,
clap.
come on, let me just say, let me rubbish the people I have. The point is the Editors Guild feels a monopoly of a process being threatened. And therefore, when Modi reaches out directly, either through the social media or through his speeches, they said, but why don't we get a chance to interrogate him? So I think their concerns as having lost a role is legitimate. But if you look at it from the Prime Minister's role, he says, why do I need these brokers?
One second, Swapan.
I
The point over here is...
I have to...
The point, I'll just give you a chance. The point over here is that he gives his message across as he chooses to. A true democracy is, which is where what you call brokers come in, who ask questions which maybe the politicians don't like to answer, but they are answerable in a democracy. And that's the point of what journalists do. So for you to take that call, to call journalists with epithets such as brokers, all right, 1 second, please let me also complete, all right? The fact is that when you take that away, you are in every way destroying democracy because you're removing the voice of the people. You're removing the voice of the people which politicians have to learn to answer to.
Madhu,
We've had too much of autocracy.
Those voices are still being there.
Where?
It has not been stifled.
Where? Of course it's been stifled.
You have entire control of the media.
Why did the Editors Guild send that letter?
The Editors Guild has their own problems.
Because
the
he's
editors
not
go by bhav.
Because nobody in the Modi Modi government is speaking to the press.
Editors
That's a
Guild is
problem.
pissed off
That's
because
Sankarshan.
Modi
Can I-
doesn't take them on his plane for these
No, 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 no,
overseas.
no, no,
One
Number
minute,
one.
Come on. Nobody wants to go on those boring
number two,
junkets, please.
there is a special. They were not reporting the decision-making process. They had become part of the decision-making process, and this
not-
is what the
if that was
Radia
so,
showed
Swapan-
more than anywhere else.
Swapan, if that
this
was so, then the Congress party would not have been in power so long.
No.
Please. Come on.
Can I begin now? Can I now begin?
Yeah, I think you should
One-
put on your journalist hat for a bit.
Just to
Forget
state
the
a
BJP.
few things plainly. The Editors Guild is not the representative of the entire journalistic voice in this country. Neither is it representative of this undertaking called democracy. It operates in a much wider, on a much wider frame. Strategy is fine. Modi going to television, maxing his time, strategy is fine, but there has to be more things than strategy to politics, especially when you have become prime minister of the world's most populous democracy. Let me just, television. Today, half an hour after landing, I think Shekhar tweeted he was going to come on this panel, and I retweeted it. This is the power of television now and the expectation. 12, no, it is, I'm telling you, I'm coming to it. 12 tweets within a minute. Sir, on which channel? Nobody is bothered coming to the Bangalore Lit Fest. All the expectations are on television. So granted. But when you are, in a democracy, you have to deal with media. You can't call them a bunch of brokers. I'm sorry, Swapan. If you are going to retreat from that role, yourself being a well-known columnist, widely read columnist, if you are going to say the media are a bunch of jokers, brokers, whatever, jokers, brokers, whatever. You said brokers.
Same thing.
Well, brokers. I think it's very sad.
So
of you
you're
to
a
say
broker.
that. I think,
You're a broker.
and let me tell you, there are very legitimate reasons for the media's relationship with Narendra Modi to be troubled. There are questions that he has not opened himself to for a long, long time. There are questions that he has brushed aside. Today, as a reporter, the Prime Minister's office does not have a spokesperson. It's his choice not to have it. But he has a public relations man who is not open to the media. The point of being on the Prime Minister's plane is not getting a free ride. The point of being on a Prime Minister's plane is to get access to the country's chief executive, to be able to ask him some questions, to be able to ask people around him some questions, to get a backgrounder on what might be happening behind what decision. All of these things have stopped happening in this dispensation. They are probably happening by design, yes. But I don't think it is the right design in a democracy to be opaque.
Shekhar, see, what we are, as journalists, are experiencing, that interviews are not being given, but we are being called for private meetings. That, Madhuji, aap yahan 5:30 baje minister ne bulaya. I don't know why I'm called. I'm happy I'm going. Kuch milega. Information kuch to milegi.
मेरे को तो बुलाया नहीं
And stories are being, they will call you. Stories are being planted. That I'm given this information, ye hai, ye ho raha hai, and I'm supposed to go and follow up, which is not the way a democracy should function. Planting stories on journalists. Obviously, there are journalists who will do just what they are telling them to do, but it's not worthwhile unless you get the other side. Now, Shekhar, please, it's most important for you to answer what Swapan said.
Well, first of all, let me say something where I agree with Swapan, which is that journalists, even in a democracy, can't claim access to information as a right, right? Some systems are more accessible, some are less accessible. In fact, systems that are difficult to access make it more challenging for journalists, particularly for reporters. And if anybody says that anybody can make Nai Delhi into Pyongyang, they live in another world, right? Anybody can come in, even when Indira Gandhi imposed the emergency, stuff still leaked. And stuff still leaks in this one. These are very early days in this government. So having said that, I think, Swapan, I understand what you mean when you say journalists were brokers and the brokers have been cut out. I would use another synonymous word, partly synonymous word. I would say intermediaries. And that's where I disagree with you also, Sankarshan, because
What's the difference?
That's the this business of social
Gets
media.
a commission.
No, no. Let me, no, intermediaries also earn their living, so it's not. There are similarities. Look, social media. You and I are at least journalists, Swapan, Madhu, of some track record. We are worried about our reputations. Even, in fact, I've recently accepted being on Twitter in deference to company policy. But,
Welcome to the cesspool.
Yes, my children curse me if I get a spelling wrong. They say, do you realize it's for public consumption? It's not a text message. Don't leave typos there. Sometimes I delete and retype. So having said that, I dispute the idea that you can do journalism or you can have genuine freedom of the press or expression only through social media or through citizen journalism. Because I think journalism is a specialized profession. I keep telling people, it's very unfashionable to say so, but I say that when you give me citizen doctors and citizen lawyers, I will give you citizen journalists. So this idea that leader will speak directly to the people and people will directly hold forth on him is wrong. It worked during one election campaign, and Swapan, I'll disagree with you that Arnab's interview destroyed Rahul. By the time he got on that interview, he was spoiled goods. Even if he had done a stellar interview, even if he done a most stellar interview, people would have still laughed at him because he had a bad story. The Congress party had no case. Congress party had a bad product because after 10 years of UPA, you cannot seek a vote against your own government and its own policies. So in fact, I always said that Congress party was a case of an autoimmune disease. When the body starts eating itself up, you had the party leadership attacking its own government all the time. So I don't think Rahul had any chance. Look, media, in fact, if anything, in this election campaign, in the entire run-up to the election campaign, media was very friendly and sympathetic, obsequious to Modi. To the extent that they would do anything if they had the promise even of a direct soundbite with Modi. Because they knew that was the big exclusive.
Is there self-censorship now, you think?
No, there's no
fear or trying to get access?
No, there is no fear. I think a lot of the media is very new. A lot of the media owners are very new. They haven't been through tough times.
New meaning?
Well, they haven't
Mukesh
seen a
Ambani?
challenge. 10 years of UPA was a walk in the park because UPA was such a weak government that even if they abused you here and there, they couldn't do very much to you. So a lot of the people who own the media, including all the TV channels, were never there during the emergency. They were never there under a tough government. In fact, most of them did not even see Rajiv's first 2 years when his was a strong government, right? So this media has not been through that fire. Owners as well as journalists. But I would say owners more than journalists. But the second problem is TV and the ratings business. Now, how do I arrive at an editorial judgment on a TV channel? Do I arrive at an editorial judgment on the basis of this is a better case than this case? Or do I arrive at it on the basis of this will give me more eyeballs than this one? Right? So I just say, what is the point of all this? This gives me no eyeballs. So look, how many channels put up how much of Arvind Kejriwal on TV? The fellow at the end of the day was worth 4 seats in India.
Yeah, but
But
there
4
was
seats.
also a channel who,
No, but-
who people lost their jobs for insisting
No,
on
but
showing it.
that is much later. That's after he's lost out, and I'm not quite sure it quite happened that way. And if you ask me quite honestly, and I'm in my business quite old now, I would say what that channel was doing at that time was wrong. Because that channel and many other channels, editors have forgotten their job. And that's when I'm coming back to Swapan's point. Editor's main job is intermediation. When a reporter brings a story, when somebody says something live, you have to exercise judgment. And you say, look, is it right? Is it wrong? Is he making allegations? If he's making allegations, shall I check with the other side? I must check with the other side. It is no excuse that Arvind Kejriwal was holding live press conferences where he was calling everybody's whatever. And I couldn't wait because it was live, because if I didn't run it live, I will lose TRPs. I think editors who follow that principle are not editors anymore.
That's a fair assessment, yes.
We editors,
We have some questions from...
it's very easy to decide what to run, but the tough call for an editor is to decide what not to run. And I keep saying all the time that the real power of an editor is not how much he gets paid, who he can hire, who he can fire, who he meets. It is only one, which is that this story shall be published, come what may, and this story shall not be published, come what may.
We have
So
some
what
questions
Arvind
from
Kejriwal was
Twitter.
doing, exactly what Modi was doing. He was holding a tamasha, and everybody said, if I don't do it, my TRPs go. Look at the tamasha from New York now. I mean, this is nonsense, what's going on right now. You know, one TV anchor described Modi as Moses. Moses leading his people to the promised land. Are we 1.26 billion Jews? Did he make the Atlantic Ocean part? I mean, has anybody, and it's a mainstream channel, and it's a well-known anchor. Rockstar, everybody says now, you can get 20,000 Gujaratis in Madison Square Garden. You can get Lata Mangeshkar, they'll fill that hall. But to call him Moses, what kind of...
May I just make...
is that
one-
broker? Is it intermediary? What is
I
it?
think
Vishnu
you're quite
Som
right.
on
You know,
NDTV during what's his name, Arvind Kejriwal's thing, called it like it was like the test series. He says it's like enthusiasm's like a cricket match. So people do get out of control.
Times of India on the front page, banner headline said, nothing to stop August Kranti. I mean, August Kranti was 1942, quit India. I mean, hang on. You know, I was 10 years old in 1967 when the sadhus besieged Delhi against Gau Hatya, cow slaughter.
Yeah.
There were more than 1.5 million sadhus in Delhi. So what is 30,000 people in Anna Hazare's crowd?
For
Where
five-
even
Crowd of 5,000 now becomes a sea of humanity, Shekhar.
sea of humanity.
In India.
So
a
in
country
fact,
like
there used to
India.
be a joke during the emergency when Mrs. Gandhi was holding her rallies, and newspapers were made to say she had 3 lakh people, 4 lakh people. So a famous humorist then was asked that how does Mrs. Gandhi come to her numbers? How does she count her crowd? See, so it's very simple. They count the limbs and multiply by 4, right?
So we have some questions from Twitter.
Since you raised this, I have a strong point. The same editorial weakness that was shown in covering the Kejriwal movement, when all of us suspended our editorial judgment. You know, I always say in the newsroom, one thing you must never switch off is the bullshit detector in your head, right? So when somebody comes and tells you that money lost on spectrum on 2G in 2007 was 1,76,000 crores. It's not folklore. Everybody says it. 1,76,000 crores in 2007 was 4.71% of our GDP. It's worth $2 billion more than our entire defense budget. Now, if that is the value of spectrum, then you have to, we don't need a defense budget. Tell the defense forces they hold this much spectrum. Every year they can auction this much and buy all the submarines and ships and planes they want. But nobody wants to be confused with facts. So CAG started it, and all the media then repeated it ad nauseum. And if you questioned it, if you said, yes, there was a scandal with 2G, but it's not 1,76,000 crores, you were called pro-corrupt. Where are your tax returns? Has your wife paid her electricity bill, right? And then social media was used for this. And frankly, I would have expected more journalists to stand
Question
up to
it,
it
yeah.
and question it. Today also, if journalists are crying, they have no business to cry. Frankly,
there
I disagree with the Editors Guild. No guild should protest about lack of access. It should be taken as a challenge. If they are pressured, if somebody is intimidating them, if somebody is saying, you write in my favor, I'll give you ads. If you don't, I will not give you ads. Then you can protest. But not access, what is this? No, there is no equitable right under our constitution.
I
that
think the
Sankarshan,
best
Thakur,
line-
Shekhar, Gupta, Swapan,
Madhu, may I
Dasgupta, Madhu.
just-
I
May I
think the
just
best line
elaborate,
that
you
has
know?
come out of this session is people don't want to be confused with facts, which Shekhar said. I think that's
Well,
a lovely
I
line.
think it's very interesting. I mean, the Economic Times, for instance, and talking about this Kejriwal mania, which overtook the country around January of 2013, was it 2014? 2014, yeah. They used to publish each day. AAP goes national, AAP goes something, so-and-so gives up 2 crore job to go join AAP. So, and these were front page stories. Now, I did a sort of around June, I did a thing of each of these big names who given up 2 crore jobs to contest elections. How many votes did they get? The average was 13 to 25, between 13 and 25,000 votes in a Lok Sabha constituency, where not one of them saved their deposit. they got a type of traction which seemed to be far beyond what existed on the ground, which again prompts the belief that this was a deliberate editorial statement of trying to talk up something. Now, you can talk up something if there is something there to be talked up, but you can't create it out of thin air.
No, there were TV.
And this was the whole thing. The so-called revolt against Modi, which people were talking about within the BJP. Now, they didn't exist. If any of these reporters or editors had bothered to go and talk to the BJP people, they would have discovered one thing. That regardless of what certain people, octogenarians, may have said, the troops on the ground were clear on one count. That if Modi is the candidate, we will give our heart and soul and everything, entire energies for
Okay,
it.
can we...
That was the thing.
Can we get
now
some-
that was you see,
Okay,
Madhu,
fine.
you don't want to hear because
No,
the
listen, you've given enough
2014
of the
election,
BJP
the 2014 election was
lecture.
not
Now
about...
I have to get the Twitter questions
No,
in.
the 2014 election was not about the media.
You're not running
It was
for
about
election.
a mandate. And we are
Swapan.
talking about the 2014 polls. And they were not about the media. The media was an incidental player. The media felt itself bypassed. So the media has a grievance. And I think that grievance needs to be heard.
I don't know. I don't know who even said that, Swapan.
I think that
Nobody made that
and
case.
therefore
Nobody
please
made that
keep
case.
and particularly the left liberal chattering classes feel completely alienated.
Woo! Okay, Sheikh. Swapan. They're telling me to shut you up. Okay. Now, there's some questions from Twitter for all three of you. This one is from Bhaskar Hegde. The question is, what is the one aspect of Mr. Modi which was not covered or analyzed by media but played a crucial role in 2014? Very quickly, because we have to wind up. 2 lines.
I really, I think Modi was all over the campaign. The one question that I tried towards the end of the campaign, especially, I felt this when I went a second time to Bihar. There was, I wrote about this, there was an absolutely blank rapture about them. If you interrogated people about why Modi, they had no answers, but it was Modi and nobody else.
Shekhar, you
and
remember the
think
question?
We are still trying to analyze this rapture.
One aspect that was not covered or
No,
analyzed
I
by
think more
Modi.
than not covered. I think one aspect which was exaggerated negatively, which was Modi being seen too much as a leader of Gujarat, as a sui generis, medium-sized state of a distinct ethnicity, whether India will accept him or not. I think a lot of people who said that would not have said it if he had come from Bihar or UP. So there was a Hindi heartland mindset there. And people were not appreciating adequately how cosmopolitan Indians are becoming in their minds. That a Gujarati can also be seen as a leader in Tamil Nadu. Look at the BJP's vote percentage in Tamil Nadu. In fact, they are replacing the Congress in Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Odisha. You've seen a tectonic shift in our politics. And I would not say that most people didn't see it, because then I have to put a qualification, something idiotic like I saw it, right? But I think a lot of people saw it. And if you want me to say what is it that they didn't see about Modi, they didn't see many of the negatives of Modi. And I remember this in a newsroom. In fact, when Amit Shah was appointed a BJP president, and I heard in a newsroom they said, but don't mention his cases, etc. in Gujarat. And these are serious cases. And when editors asked the owners, why should we not mention these? They said, किसी की शादी के दिन दूल्हे के past के crime थोड़ा बताते हैं. But the point is, past to chal raha hai na, past is going on.
That's very serious,
But
Shekhar.
that to me is bad journalism. There is no excuse for
very
it.
serious.
Nobody's put pressure on you for this. This is just self-correction.
there
Media,
is self-censorship.
frankly, media now and leading media has become like a fly-by-wire aircraft, which corrects itself all the time, right? Nobody is threatening them. In fact, people said in the emergency that when asked to bend, they crawled, right? These fellows have not even been asked to bend. At least in 1975, media had this much izzat in this country that Mrs. Gandhi and Mrs. Shukla had to tell them to ask to bend or send them to jail. This time, nobody's even cared to call them, because they know
don't
you can
have
take
to.
this media for granted. Madhu, every TV channel, news TV channel, barring a couple in local languages, every TV channel is making losses. Every English TV channel is making losses. Most other TV news channels are making losses. I mean, many of them are listed. You can see their financials, right? Their economics is very small. Corporate world has realized, I mean, it's a figure that Vanita Khandekar produced in Business Standard, that the total turnover of the entire media in India, all languages, all news, entertainment, Chitrahar, everything included, Jhalak Dikhla Ja, whatever.
No, what is this in context to journalism?
I'm telling you, the entire turnover of India's media is 83,000 crores, which is less than the turnover of Bharti Airtel. So, because media has begun to see itself in balance sheet terms, media has realized how weak it is. If media sees itself in institutional terms, it's very strong. And I always say we should see ourselves as the Viet Cong. It doesn't matter how strong we are, doesn't matter how big our balance sheets are, doesn't matter what our profits are, but we'll just not give in. But media, on the other hand, in the past 15 years, has begun to see itself in its profitability, balance sheet.
It was Narendra Modi not interpreted in a single way. And I think the complexity of what Modi meant for the whole country, I think all those complexities were often not captured in its entirety.
You're
Now
not
there's
naming
another
one.
question
You're not
from,
naming one, Swapan. I have to put it in. He was also seen by a huge mass as Hindu Hriday Samrat, which he
Oh,
did
yes.
play.
Okay,
Which he did
fair
play.
enough, fair enough.
And
No,
the
no, fair
BJP went
enough.
out and played.
Now, the
Fair
last
enough, I
question
think
from-
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, not least in the state of Karnataka. His appeal in Karnataka was substantially based on his Hindu appeal.
Okay, the last question from Twitter from Bobby Manish. Would we ever see a Thatcher style of government in India? That's for you, especially for you, Swapan.
Okay. Well, I'm a great unabashed admirer of Margaret Thatcher, which is
Unabashed Anglophile.
well, also an admirer of Margaret Thatcher, which is what makes me unpopular with the left liberal crowd, who believes that she's the personification of the demon. But, the single point about Margaret Thatcher, which is problematic in India, is how much of state enterprise do you sell? The style of the decisive leader, etc., is something which I think there are very many more leaders. But what Margaret Thatcher did was, how much of the state do you roll back? And I think what Modi has done is, he's tried to make government a little more efficient. He hasn't as yet rolled back the state, given it over to the community, to the people's own sort of aspirations, self-regulation, etc. And even as far as the PSUs are concerned, I think in India, he will go far more hesitantly, far more cautiously than has been the case. So a total replica of Thatcher, however desirable it may be, I don't think we are likely to see in India.
Now, questions from the audience? Anyone? Where's the mic? No, there are lots of questions, but the mic, yeah, there's 5-6 questions there. Please go ahead.
In the case of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, she kind of demolished her own party by taking away the democracy. Do you think that Narendra Modi will do the same thing to the BJP?
Shekhar, you take it.
Well, it's very early days yet, but I think I said in the very beginning that BJP used to have a lot of internal democracy. At this point, it doesn't. At this point, it's a party in the old, not fully, but in many ways, in the old Congress mold. But I will tell you why it's not fully in the old Congress mold. Because unlike the Congress under Mrs. Gandhi and definitely under Rajiv and later under Sonia, BJP has very strong chief ministers who are leaders of their states in their own right. Vasundhara Raje, Raman Singh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, they're all leaders of their states in their own right. So that's where BJP is still a different model. And I think if somebody tried to replicate the Indira Sonia, in fact, much more than Indira Sonia model on the BJP, I think the BJP's immune system will strike back. And that will make politics very interesting. I hope it doesn't cause stability in governance. But I do not think that these battles are waged and won in the first 125 days.
Next question.
Hello. Just add one thing. You know, what was the turning point? When did Mrs. Gandhi become dictatorial? I think it's very important to note that. The day she anointed Sanjay Gandhi as her successor. Prior to that, she was just another, sometimes weak, sometimes very strong Congress Prime Minister, operating within the Congress system. And of course, she broke the party. But the day she anointed Sanjay Gandhi, she took her control of the party to a different plane. It became a dynastic democracy. Now, I don't think that's likely to happen in the case of Narendra Modi. And secondly, let me tell you, as far as Modi's things, democracy was the reason why Modi was anointed the chief ministerial candidate in September 2013. Number two, it was Modi's own accommodation of the BJP and the BJP's own understanding with Modi, whereby the entire candidate list, with possible exception of Gujarat, was decided by people not necessarily did not bear Modi's personal stamp, which might explain why there are a certain degree of weakness. The bench strength of the BJP at times is not as high as it may be.
Would you say, Swapan, the situation remains the same within the BJP after 283?
No. Obviously, there has been a shift in balance. But as Shekhar quite rightly said, in India, we are, in various ways, every political party is also a rainbow coalition. They contain various impulses. And you cannot always. You can have a charismatic leader who can lead a national campaign. But democracy and electoral politics works at various levels. At the state assembly level, at the panchayat level, at municipal levels, at all these. And at these things, you cannot, the day you try to have a centralized, one person's decision determines everything, I think that's the ruin of any political party. Plus, let's not forget the elephant in the room, which is the RSS.
Okay, yeah, whoever has the mic. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Here.
Yes.
So we totally agree that in the recent polls, people wanted Congress to go out. And Narendra Modi was possibly the best alternative we had. And most of us do agree that he was the best alternative we had and people voted for him, right? So, but I also want to ask you that should India as a democratic nation, which has been holding elections for so long successfully, should also move beyond this whole just the perception management and get into the specifics. For example, BJP released its manifesto. By the time it's released manifesto, I think first round of elections were already over in Assam, right? So should we get into, I mean, we keep calling it presidential election, but do you not think that it should turn into completely presidential in a case where the leading contenders should debate on topics, clear out economic policies, whatever they are going to do, and release manifesto beforehand and discuss manifesto beforehand, right? We all, I mean, before election, we all agreed that Congress screwed up, and we somehow believed that Modi is the best alternative. But what was he trying to do different if he became PM? Nobody
we got the
knew,
question. Go ahead.
right?
I'm not so sure, when particularly in this election, what we saw, when so much direct dialogue is happening between leader and constituency, I personally feel written manifestos, unless there is something very radical in them, do not really come into play. Even without a manifesto written, Narendra Modi would have won this, and the Congress could have had the best manifesto, which it probably did produce, would have lost this election. On your other question on the presidential form of government, I remain very skeptical. We are a very deeply plural, regional, we are a huge collective of jigsaw things. I don't know if a presidential form of, presidential kind of leader or a presidential style of executive will work. I mean, time will probably sort of correct me. These are the beginnings. I think Indira Gandhi tried once to do this sort of thing. She did succeed. She went over her party, which Modi has also done. She made the party irrelevant, went straight to the people, which I think to some degree Modi has also done, making the party irrelevant in terms of how he got elected as leader of the party, because he said the people are with me. You said the soldiers on the ground were with him. So,
I, may I just give you an anecdote? During this particular question was posed to Modi, and in fact, it was decided as a team that yes, it's time to get into specifics. So around October, when the BJP National Council was meeting, he decided that he would devote his speech considerably to actually fleshing out policies. Now, what happened was that he did, but halfway through it, he realized that the audience interest was flagging. And to my mind, it would have flagged almost completely had you gone into specifics. The bizarre, and I think one of the, maybe it's a shortcoming, but it's a feature of Indian elections is we select leaders, whether at the constituency level, whether or at the state level or at the national level. And we let those leaders, after election, after victory, decide what is good for the country or for the state. This may not be the most healthy trend, but this is what the reality is. Which is why Devilal used to always say, who reads manifestos? Why produce them in the first place?
Okay, last question.
This question is to Sankarshan specifically. In your book on Nitish Kumar, you have written that once in 1990s, Nitish Kumar said that सत्ता प्राप्त करूंगा किसी भी कीमत पर, लेकिन सत्ता लेकर अच्छा काम करूंगा. Now, after this 2014 verdict, we have seen some sort of realignment in Bihar, obviously, and the possible talks that other parties will follow suit. So, how do you see regional politics in India changing after this decisive verdict for BJP?
No, regional parties will remain. Regional politics will remain relevant. And this is a function of how plural we are and how federal we are. And you know, it's also a function of how the Congress went wrong in trying to dominate. You know, the famous T. Anjaya example and how N.T. Ramarao became overnight from a film star to a chief minister. I think it's a function of what happened during what the Congress and Indira Gandhi tried to do during those days. You know, encourage regional leaders. And I think it's now struck root. I don't think it's going to go away easily. I think you will have elections where either sort of caste considerations or sometimes even regional considerations will be overridden by a person. But I don't think we are at a stage where even parties like the Congress and the BJP, and I think Shekhar said, one of the reasons why the BJP remains strong or will remain strong and rooted is that it has very strong chief ministers, which the Congress ceased to have over the past so many years. I mean, the Congress just lost its leaders. Look at what it did to young Jagan Reddy. I think the joke was that someone, I can't name him, I was told that in one party there can be only one Yuvraj. So you throw out Jagan Reddy, cannot become a successor. But you lost a potentially, strong regional leader in the way you treated Jagan Reddy. So I don't think regional impulses are going to go away. They might, in fact, become stronger.
In fact, I'll say that they will become stronger because if many regional leaders, particularly in the Hindi heartland, now believe, or they believe the commentariat, that BJP won this election because of polarization, then polarization is a game that two can play. Because then the question is that, look, BJP still got only 30-odd% votes, right? So there is a lot of other votes, so get it together. And I think Nitish and Lalu have shown other parties the way. And who knows tomorrow, if SP and BSP come together, this country's power balance would completely change. But don't laugh. I mean, if I had said the same thing 6 months back about Lalu and Nitish, you would have laughed even more than this, right? So politics is not a strange place. Politics is a familiar place. Things happen in politics. Don't forget that BJP and the left have collaborated more than once in our recent political history to keep Congress out of power. VP Singh's government was supported by both BJP
And the left.
and the left. In Punjab, the Akali Dal then Jansangh government was supported by the left to keep. So in politics, you always figure out who is the devil. And that definition is not permanent, it keeps changing. So, so the devil is a dynasty, then BJP is your friend. That's for India's left, right?
Can I just relate an anecdote on
Sure.
this? Madhu was doing a live program in Patna during the Lok Sabha elections, and she was doing a live interview, audience interview with Lalu Yadav. I got the first question and I asked him कि आप एंटी कम्युनल हैं, बहुत लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं, आपको लगता है कि आप नीतीश से कभी हाथ मिला सकते हैं? And he looked at me. You remember that? He looked at me and he said, ठाकुर जी, आप तो बहुत पढ़े लिखे आदमी हैं, कैसी बातें कर रहे हैं आप? जिसकी गोद में. And look at what's happening today. I mean, you can't tell these.
We can conclude with, in agreement with, I think, all three of you, that this election is the first time that we've had many new aspects in the election, which is the social media, which the BJP used to its ultimate. I must say that 1 week after Modi was elected, I got in my mail a website that had obviously been in the making for the last year, which was BJP Circles, which included, I had to fill in a form in which the area of which I lived in, the problems of that area, how I could contribute, and what were my suggestions. And this went to everybody in my area and to all the people in the constituency. This was a website obviously being made, took a year for them to make. So the planning of this new kind of politics, the BJP was very much up to the mark in. I think this election showed that they used technology, they used connecting with who they were talking to. Narendra Modi never gave the same speech. If he was speaking to FICCI, or he was speaking to students in IITs, he was speaking to in Banaras, they were completely different. And he spoke to people, he was very clued in on who he was addressing. It wasn't a standard speech, which is what we normally see of politicians in all campaigns. So there were many differences in this campaign, and I think they were all improvements because they all connected people more to the politicians and vice versa. Thank you, all three of you. And thank you for a great audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such an engaging and wonderful session. And I understand a lot of people had more questions, but I'm sorry to say that the session is going to end now. So I request the panelists to sign in the BLF signboard.